Well, hey everyone, welcome back to the cabin. What I'm doing is working on sharpening my saw. I'm getting ready to go down and cut the tops out of some of the trees that fell during the last windstorm, and I remembered that this saw was getting a little bit dull. So we don't want to be working with material or equipment that doesn't cut well, because that's a lot of times when accidents can happen. But anyway, one of these right here, this is what I'm using. This is just a file that you can pick up at the hardware store. But right here, it's got different angles. So what you do is you take and you line the angle up with your blade, and then you just slide it along through there. Then you pull the next tooth back and do the same thing. Now, once we get to this gold link right here, which is actually my starting point. Now, some chains don't have that right there, so I usually take marks a lot and just color the top tooth, but this one happens to have it, so I use that as my starting point. What we'll do is we'll take it loose, we'll turn it around, and do the other side. Then we do the same thing on this other side. Until we come back to the magic link. Okay, I'm back to the golden tooth now. What I do next, I'm going to take my flat file, and these teeth right here in front of your main tooth drags the wood shavings outside. So this is called a drag tooth. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my file, I'm going to start where that's at, and I'm just going to hit it a couple strokes. Alright, now that I got the drag teeth filed down a couple of times, I'm going to go ahead and gas and oil this up, and we'll go down there and we'll test it out and see if it's sharp. You'll know if your saw is sharp once you start cutting. So let me see if I can explain it this way. This one is the tooth that cuts, and the one in front of it is the drag tooth. Okay, the drag tooth is just a hair bit lower. The lower it is, the more it will cut. So you don't want it too far, or your saw will just be jumping around because it'll be trying to cut too much. But what you want to do is, normally every other time that I would file, I would probably hit the drag teeth maybe a couple of times, because the more you file that tooth down, the lower it gets compared to your drag tooth, and you want to be able to still cut. So they kind of both have to go down at the same time for them to continue to cut well. Anyway, let's get this thing gassed and oiled up, and we'll take it down and see how good a job we did sharpening it. Alright, well, I can tell you that this saw generally starts on the third crank. We'll just see if I'm telling the truth. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I can sure tell that that's going to cut a whole lot better, especially when you pull these out here where you can take a look at them. When you're throwing out chunks that size, you're doing good. So what I've got now is I've got 16 foot plus 12 foot. I think I'll check and make sure I've got all the limbs sawed off of it, but I'll be able to hook up to it hopefully and drag it up out of here and then cut off my other length. I had to make another run down to the field down there and get some more of this cane for the garden. It didn't quite have enough to stake all the cucumbers, beans, and tomatoes, so I just lacked a few, so I ran down and picked those up. So as soon as I get these leaves stripped off here, we'll run up there and I'll let you see the garden and what it looks like currently. Well, I think that this is the last tomato that I'm going to have to tie up. Everything else is pretty much done. I know people stake their tomatoes in different ways, but I find that this works pretty well, and I can leave all of this stuff in place and reuse it the next year, so that's really nice. Just cut the strings away. Well, alright friends, I pretty much got all of this, like I said, tied up. You can see that the beans are all bushed up. The cucumbers are doing well. I've got tomato plants planted everywhere. They're actually doing well. They're about waist high or more. All the peppers are doing well. Marigolds, onions. Now the marigolds were just in here to kind of keep bugs out, and you know what? They may actually be doing a good job. I heard that the old timers swore by it, so I thought that I would do it this year, but I don't know. The only thing that I have spotted this year that I had last year and the year before that is a little bit of that, looks like that leaf rot on the very end, which they call that blossom end rot, but generally that shows up on the fruit. But if you see it on the leaves, you're going to see it on the fruit too. That's been my experience. So yeah, so I'm going to have to try to get some calcium nitrate and get down there in the ground before it takes off and gets bad. But anyway, this is the garden here at the Outpost this year. Well, it came just a little bit of a shower a while ago after we left the garden, and I got everything picked up. That lasted probably about an hour. Wasn't real long, but the garden did appreciate what it did get. So let's see, we've got 2x6s for the rafters partially cut for the roof for the workshop down there that Jennifer has got burned and stained. So we've got to finish cutting the rafters for that. We've got to mill up some 2x4s and some sheathing to start closing in the walls. Probably what I'll do is I'll get up top and I will close in up underneath the gable ends before I actually put the roof on, because it would be a little bit too difficult on the overhang to do that and the side of where the transitions are of the two roofs. So I'll go ahead and I'll try to get that fixed in before I actually put the roof on. That way I don't have to get back up there and try to climb up underneath and do anything. But so you'll see kind of what I've got in mind that's going to take place for the siding real soon. Anyway, it sounds like it's starting to sprinkle just a little bit more. But yeah, we've got to cut our way into all of the storm damage that happened here to get to the logs to cut up a bunch of new material. So thank goodness we've got those that we can choose from, and then also my neighbor has still got some down up there that he said that I could have. Anyway, so it looks like we've got plenty of logs to mill the lumber out of to build the workshop. So God provides. Before that happened, I was actually buying logs. So now we've got, of course, I've changed species. I went from poplar to pine, but the pine seems to be working out okay. And actually, you can't really tell between the two since I've burned it and done the hewing on the beams. It's a little bit more difficult to pick it out from a distance. But anyway, guys, if you like this kind of building, I'll tell you what, we couldn't do anything up here if it wasn't for the tractor. When you live on a mountain like this, you know, I could haul things maybe with the four-wheeler, but you're not going to be pulling logs up the mountain with the four-wheeler. So it would be a little bit difficult to do anything here in the mountains without that. If you haven't seen where we actually got the new tractor, which was about this time last year, click up here in the top right hand corner, because I think that I did a pretty good review on what we now call Big John. Anyway, guys, thanks for stopping by. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you back up here at the cabin again next time.